The black SUVs rolled into the park like death itself. Victoria Hayes didn't run. She stood, shoulders squared, as men in $1,000 suits stepped out, lawyers, security, corporate vultures who'd been hunting her for months. Adrian watched the homeless woman he'd fed every morning transform into someone else entirely. Her posture shifted, her eyes sharpened. When she spoke, her voice cut through the frozen air with the authority of old money and older rage. "Gentlemen," she said, and Adrian's coffee hit the ground. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Before we dive into this story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever helped someone without knowing who they really were? Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. And if you stick around until the end, you'll find out why one simple sandwich changed 2 lives forever. Hit that like button and let's begin. The alarm went off at 5:47 a.m., same as always. Adrian Cole didn't hit snooze. He never did. The discipline came from somewhere deep, from years when missing a shift meant missing rent, when being late meant being replaced. Even now, with enough money in the bank to cushion a few mistakes, his body wouldn't let him slip. He swung his legs out of bed, feet hitting cold hardwood. The apartment was quiet. 14 floors up, the city noise barely penetrated the triple-pane windows. And for a moment, just a moment, he let himself appreciate the silence. Then he stood, pulled on running clothes, and moved. The routine was sacred. 20 minutes on the treadmill in the building's gym, shower, shave, check the futures markets on his phone while the coffee brewed, toast with almond butter, 2 egg scrambled. Nothing fancy. Adrian had lived in luxury long enough to know that expensive didn't mean better, and habit didn't care about your bank account. By 6:03, he was in the kitchen making sandwiches. Not for himself. He pulled out wheat bread, turkey, Swiss cheese, mustard, but not too much. Lettuce. Tomato sliced thin. He wrapped each sandwich in wax paper with the kind of care that would have made his mother smile. Added an apple, a granola bar, bottled water. Everything went into a brown paper bag that crinkled when he folded the top down. "Daddy?" Chloe stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. 7 years old, dark curls still messy from sleep, wearing pajamas covered in planets and stars. She was small for her age, but her eyes, those eyes saw everything. "Morning, baby girl," Adrian said, softer now. "You're up early." "You were making noise." "Sorry." She padded over to him, bare feet on tile, and climbed onto one of the kitchen stools. "Is that for her?" Adrian didn't ask who. Chloe had been asking about the sandwiches for weeks now, watching him pack them every morning with the intensity of a detective. "Yeah," he said. "The lady in the park?" "That's right." Chloe picked at the corner of the granite countertop, thinking. "Does she have a name?" "I don't know." "Why not?" Adrian set down the second sandwich he'd started making, this one for himself, cheaper ingredients, less care, and looked at his daughter. "Because she hasn't told me." "Did you ask?" "No." "Why not?" These were the questions that gutted him, the simple, relentless logic of a child who hadn't yet learned that some things were better left alone. "Because," Adrian said carefully, "sometimes people don't want to be asked. Sometimes they just want to be helped." Chloe considered this. "But if you don't know her name, how do you know she wants help?" "She takes the food." "Maybe she's just being polite." Adrian smiled despite himself. "Maybe, but I don't think so." "How do you know?" "I just do." It wasn't a good answer. Chloe's expression told him as much. But she let it go, the way kids do when they sense they've hit bedrock. The place where adult logic stops making sense and starts being about feelings instead. "Can I come with you sometime?" she asked. "No." "Why not?" "Because it's not safe." "You go." "I'm a grown-up." "You always say I should help people." "I do say that," Adrian admitted. "But there's helping, and there's being smart about helping. You stay here, where it's warm, where it's safe." Chloe's mouth twisted, not quite a pout, but close. She slid off the stool. "You're going to be late." She wasn't wrong. Adrian glanced at his watch, 6:08. He grabbed both bags, kissed the top of Chloe's head, and headed for the door. "Daddy?" He turned. "Tell her I said hi." Adrian's throat tightened. "I will." The park was 4 blocks away, tucked between high-rises like an afterthought. 20 years ago, it might have been nice. Now it was a strip of brown grass, dying trees, and benches that had seen better decades. The city kept promising renovations. The city kept lying. Adrian walked fast, breath misting in the January cold. The streets were mostly empty. Too early for the real crowds. Too late for the overnight stragglers who'd already found their corners to sleep. A few runners passed him. A woman walking 3 small dogs. A guy in a suit who looked like he'd been awake for 30 hours straight. The park gate was propped open with a rock. It was supposed to lock at night, but the mechanism had been broken for months. Adrian slipped through. She was already there. Same bench, same position. Back straight, hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. Adrian had been doing this for 4 months now, ever since that first morning when he'd walked past her on his way to clear his head, and something in his chest had twisted hard enough to hurt. She'd been sitting exactly like this. Not slumped, not sleeping, just waiting. He'd gone home that day, made an extra sandwich the next morning, and left it beside her without a word. She'd looked at him, just once, brief and wary, and then at the bag. She hadn't said thank you, hadn't smiled, just gave a small nod, the kind that acknowledged a transaction without promising anything. Adrian had kept walking, and he'd come back the next day. And the next. Now it was January, and he still didn't know her name. "Morning," he said quietly, setting the bag beside her. She turned her head. The movement was slow, deliberate. Her face was hard to read, not young, not old, somewhere in that middle space where age stopped being a number and started being about miles. Dark skin, high cheekbones, hair pulled back tight under a wool cap. She wore layers, a jacket over a hoodie over a thermal shirt, jeans that had been good once, boots with worn soles. Her eyes, though. That's what always caught him. Clear, sharp, aware. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was low, careful, like someone who didn't waste words. "You're welcome." This was usually where the conversation ended. Adrian would nod, turn, leave. The whole exchange took less than 30 seconds. But today, she spoke again. "Your daughter says hello." Adrian froze. The woman's expression didn't change. "You mentioned her once, a few weeks ago. Said you had to get home before she woke up." He had said that. He'd forgotten, but she hadn't. "She wanted me to tell you hi," Adrian said slowly. "That's kind of her. She asks about you." "What do you tell her?" "That you're someone who needs help." Something flickered across the woman's face. Too fast to name. "Is that what you think I am?" Adrian met her gaze. "I think you're someone who's sitting on a bench in January at 6 in the morning. I think you take the food I bring. Beyond that, I don't assume anything." "Smart." "Not really, just respectful." She almost smiled, almost. "Most people aren't. Most people are afraid." "Of what?" "Of whatever they think you represent." Now she did smile, but it was bitter. "And what do I represent?" Adrian shrugged. "Failure, maybe bad luck. The idea that it could happen to them." "Could it? Happen to anyone?" "Yeah, I think so." The woman looked away, back toward the empty path that cut through the park. "You don't know anything about me." "No," Adrian agreed. "I don't." "But you keep coming back." "I do." "Why?" It was the question he'd been asking himself for months, the one he didn't have a clean answer for. "Because," he said finally, "it costs me nothing, and it might mean something to you." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "It does." Adrian nodded. He wanted to ask more, her name, her story, how she ended up here. But something stopped him. The same instinct that had kept him quiet for 4 months. Instead, he said, "I should get back." "To your daughter?" "Yeah. She's lucky." "I'm the lucky one." The woman looked at him again, and this time there was something different in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or respect. "See you tomorrow," Adrian said. "See you tomorrow." Chloe was eating cereal when he got home, cartoons playing on the tablet propped against the fruit bowl. "Did you tell her?" she asked immediately. "I told her." "What did she say?" "She said that was kind of you." Chloe beamed. "Can I write her a note?" Adrian hesitated. What kind of note? I don't know, just something nice. He thought about the woman's face, guarded, careful, scarred by whatever had brought her to that bench. A note from a 7-year-old might be too much, or it might be exactly what she needed. Okay, he said, but keep it simple. Chloe was already scrambling down, running for her room where she kept her markers and construction paper. Adrian heard drawers opening, the sound of her digging through art supplies with the single-minded focus she brought to everything that mattered to her. He poured himself coffee and sat down at the counter. His phone buzzed. Work email. 3 meetings today, all of them important, all of them requiring the version of himself that wore suits and made decisions that moved money in 7 figures. He was good at that version. He'd built it carefully over the years, brick by brick, handshake by handshake. But it wasn't the version that mattered most. The version that mattered was the one Chloe saw. The one who made sandwiches at 6 in the morning for a stranger who might not even want them. Chloe came back 10 minutes later with a piece of paper folded into quarters. She'd drawn something on the front. A sun, a tree, 2 stick figures holding hands. What does it say? Adrian asked. She unfolded it and showed him. The letters were big and uneven, written in purple marker. You are seen. From Chloe. Adrian's throat went tight again. That's perfect, baby girl. Can we put it in the bag tomorrow? Yeah, we can do that. So, the next morning, the note went into the bag along with the sandwich, the apple, the water. When Adrian set it down on the bench, the woman noticed immediately. There's something extra today, she said. My daughter wanted to give you something. The woman opened the bag carefully, like she expected it to bite. When she saw the folded paper, she went very still. She pulled it out, opened it, read it. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she folded it back up, just as carefully, and tucked it into her jacket pocket. Tell her thank you, she said quietly. I will. The woman looked up at him, and her eyes were wet. She blinked, and the wetness disappeared, but Adrian had seen it. Your daughter, she said. She's going to be someone important. She already is. You know what I mean? Yeah, Adrian said. I do. A week passed. Then 2. Chloe started adding drawings to the bag every few days. Nothing elaborate, just simple sketches with messages. You matter. Stay warm. You're not alone. The woman kept every single one. Adrian could tell because one morning, when the wind picked up and knocked the bag over, a few of the drawings fell out of her jacket pocket. She gathered them quickly, protectively, like they were made of gold. He didn't comment on it, but he noticed. And he started noticing other things too. The way she held herself, straight-backed, controlled, like someone who'd been taught posture, mattered. The way she spoke, measured, precise, each word chosen deliberately. The book she was reading one morning when he arrived, a thick legal textbook, pages dog-eared and annotated in the margins. She saw him looking. Found it, she said simply. In the park? Library donation box. You interested in law? Used to be. She didn't elaborate, and Adrian didn't push, but the pieces didn't fit. The calm authority in her voice. The way she read complex legal theory at dawn like it was a newspaper. The fact that she never asked for anything, never begged, never showed the desperation he'd seen in others who lived on the streets. She was hiding something. Or hiding from something. Petit. 3 weeks into January, a man in an expensive coat walked past the bench, saw the woman, and spat on the ground near her feet. Get a job, he muttered. The woman didn't react. Adrian, who'd been halfway down the path, turned around. Hey. The man stopped. He was older, 50s maybe, red-faced and smug. Excuse me? Apologize. For what? For being an asshole. The man's face darkened. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you just disrespected someone for no reason. She's homeless. She's a person, Adrian said, and his voice dropped into a register he rarely used, the one that had closed board meetings and ended negotiations. And you're going to apologize, or you and I are going to have a very different kind of conversation. The man looked at him, then at the woman, then back at Adrian. Whatever he saw in Adrian's face made him reconsider. Fine, he muttered. Sorry. He walked away quickly, shoulders hunched. Adrian turned back to the bench. The woman was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yeah, I did." "Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do." She studied him for a moment. Then, "You don't know me." "No." "I could be dangerous." "Are you?" "I could be." "But are you?" She smiled, actually smiled, not the bitter half version from before. "No." "Then it doesn't matter." "People will judge you," she said, "for helping me, for defending me. They'll think you're naive or stupid or have some kind of savior complex. Let them think what they want. It doesn't bother you?" Adrian shrugged. "I've been judged for worse." The woman was quiet for a beat, then, "You're different." "From what?" "From most people." "I doubt that." "You shouldn't." She looked down at the bag in her lap, at the latest drawing from Chloe peeking out of the top. "You and your daughter, you see people, really see them. That's rare." "It shouldn't be." "But it is." Adrian didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a business card, bent and worn. She handed it to him. It was blank except for a phone number, written in careful handwriting. "What's this?" Adrian asked. "If something happens to me," she said, "call that number." "What kind of something?" "Just, if I'm not here one day, if you come and I'm gone, call it." Adrian looked at the card, then at her. "Are you in trouble?" "Aren't we all?" "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." He wanted to push, wanted to demand the truth, the story, the reason a woman who read legal textbooks and spoke with the precision of someone educated and capable was living on a park bench in January. But he didn't, because whatever she was running from, whatever she was hiding, it wasn't his right to know unless she chose to tell him. "Okay," he said, pocketing the card. "But you're going to be here tomorrow, right?" "I'll be here." "Promise?" She met his eyes. "I promise." That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the card, the number, the way the woman had said, "If something happens to me," like it was a real possibility, not a hypothetical. At 2 a.m., he got up and went to Chloe's room. She was asleep, curled under her planet print comforter, breathing soft and steady. He stood in the doorway and watched her, the way he did sometimes when the world felt too big and too sharp. She was the reason for everything, the early mornings, the discipline, the climb from nothing to something, from broke and desperate to stable and secure. He'd been 25 when she was born. Her mother had left 6 months later, decided motherhood wasn't for her, signed away her rights, and disappeared into a life Adrian stopped trying to imagine. So it had been just the two of them, and he'd promised her, promised himself, that she would never feel what he'd felt as a kid. The fear, the instability, the constant grinding uncertainty of whether there'd be food tomorrow, whether the lights would stay on, whether the adults around him would hold it together or fall apart. Chloe would have better, and she did. But somewhere along the way, Adrian had learned something ugly. Having money didn't erase the instinct to recognize people who were drowning. It just made it easier to ignore them. He didn't want to be someone who ignored them, even when it complicated things, even when it didn't make sense. He went back to bed, but he still didn't sleep. The next morning, when Adrian arrived at the bench, the woman wasn't alone. There was a man with her, late 30s, clean cut, wearing a jacket that was too nice for the park, but not nice enough to be corporate. He was talking to her in a low, urgent voice. The woman's posture had changed. She was tense, coiled, ready. Adrian slowed his approach. The man saw him and stopped talking. He looked Adrian up and down, assessing, calculating. "Morning," Adrian said carefully. The woman's eyes flicked to him, then back to the man. "It's fine," she said. "Is it?" Adrian asked. "Yeah." The man stepped back. "I'll be in touch," he said to the woman. Then he walked away, fast and purposeful. Adrian watched him go. Then he turned to the woman. "Who was that?" "No one." "Didn't look like no one." "He's not your concern." "If he's bothering you." "He's not," she said, and her voice had an edge now, sharp enough to cut. "I can handle it." Adrian set the bag down on the bench. "Okay," She looked at him, and some of the sharpness faded. I mean it. It's fine. If you say so. But it wasn't fine. Adrian could feel it, the same way you feel a storm coming before the first drop of rain. Something was shifting, and he had no idea what it was. The man came back 3 days later. This time Adrian saw him from a distance, standing near the park entrance, watching. When Adrian got to the bench, the woman was already looking in that direction. He's been following me, she said quietly. For how long? A week, maybe more. Do you know him? She hesitated, then, yes. Is he dangerous? Not to me, not directly. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. Adrian sat down on the bench beside her, the first time he'd ever done that. She glanced at him but didn't tell him to leave. Talk to me, he said. I can't. Why not? Because the less you know, the safer you are. I'm not asking to be safe. I'm asking to understand. The woman looked at him for a long time. Then she sighed, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep and tired. I used to have a different life, she said. A good life, and important work, people who depended on me. What happened? Someone decided they wanted what I had, and they were willing to do anything to get it. So you ran. So I disappeared. Adrian processed this. And the guy watching us? He's trying to find me. For them. Why? Because, she said, I have something they need, and they won't stop until they get it. What is it? She shook her head. I can't tell you that. Why not? Because if I do, you become a target too, and I won't do that to you, or to your daughter. The mention of Chloe sent ice through Adrian's chest. She's safe, the woman said quickly. They don't know about you, not yet. But if you keep coming here, if you keep helping me, they will. Adrian should have stood up, should have walked away, should have listened to the part of his brain screaming that this was too much, too dangerous, too far outside the simple act of giving a stranger a sandwich. Instead, he said, What do you need? The woman blinked. What? What do you need? To stay safe, to finish whatever you're doing. What do you need? I need you to forget you ever met me. Not gonna happen. Adrian, it was the first time she'd said his name and it stopped him cold. How do you know my name? You told me, she said. The second week, you said your daughter called you to ask when you'd be home, and you answered the phone, it's Adrian. He had. He'd forgotten that too. You've been paying attention, he said. I pay attention to people who matter. Then you know I'm not walking away. The woman closed her eyes. You're making a mistake. Probably. But it's mine to make. When she opened her eyes again, they were wet. Why are you doing this? Because you asked me to call a number if something happened to you. Because you keep Chloe's drawings like they're the most valuable thing you own. Because you're not what people think you are, and I don't know what you're running from, but I know you don't deserve to do it alone. She looked away, jaw tight. I can't pay you, she said. I'm not asking you to. I can't promise this ends well. I'm not asking for promises. Then what are you asking for? Adrian thought about it. The truth, when you're ready. And until then, I'll keep showing up. The woman was quiet for a long time. Then she said, My name is Victoria. Nice to meet you, Victoria. She laughed, soft and broken and real. Yeah, you too. The next morning, the man was gone. But Adrian knew it wasn't over. Victoria was still tense, still watching the edges of the park like she expected someone to step out of the shadows. He'll be back, she said when Adrian arrived. When? I don't know. Soon. What can I do? Nothing. This isn't your fight. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Adrian set the bag down. Inside was the usual, sandwich, fruit, water, but also something new. A prepaid phone. Take this, he said. Victoria looked at it. Why? Because if something happens, I want you to be able to reach me. Not just leave a number for me to call after. Actually reach me. Adrian, I know what you're going to say, but I'm giving it to you anyway. She picked up the phone, turned it over in her hands. This is a bad idea. So you've said. I mean it. So do I. Victoria looked at him, and something in her expression cracked. You're stubborn. Yeah. And kind. Sometimes. And you have no idea what you're getting into. Probably not, Adrian admitted. But I'm already in it, so we might as well see it through together. Victoria pocketed the phone. If this goes sideways, it won't. You don't know that. No, Adrian said, but I believe it anyway. She almost smiled. That's called faith. Or stupidity. Both, maybe. This time, they both smiled. Nah. 2 days later, the phone rang at 3 a.m. Adrian woke instantly, grabbed it from the nightstand. Victoria? Her voice was tight, breathless. They found me. Where are you? The park. I need... The line went dead. Adrian was out of bed and dressed in 90 seconds. He checked on Chloe, still asleep, safe, and left a note on the counter in case she woke up. Had to run out. Be back soon. Love you. Then he was out the door, running. The streets were empty, streetlights casting long shadows. Adrian's breath came hard and fast, not from exertion but from fear, the cold, sharp kind that makes your hand shake and your vision narrow. He reached the park in 6 minutes. Victoria was still on the bench, but she wasn't alone. 3 men stood around her, not the guy from before. These were different. Bigger. Harder. The kind of men who got paid to make problems disappear. Adrian stopped at the gate. One of the men turned, saw him. Keep walking. No. This doesn't concern you. It does now. The man stepped forward, and Adrian saw the gun tucked into his waistband. His stomach dropped, but he didn't move. Last chance, the man said. Victoria's voice cut through the dark. Don't. The man looked back at her. This him? The guy you've been meeting? He's no one. Then he won't mind leaving. I mind, Adrian said. The man smiled, cold and mean. Stupid. He reached for the gun, and then Victoria moved. Fast. Faster than Adrian would have thought possible. She was off the bench and between them in a heartbeat, her hand catching the man's wrist before he could draw. Touch him, she said, voice like steel, and I burn everything. The man froze. You're bluffing. Try me. For a moment, no one moved. Then one of the other men spoke, older, quieter, clearly in charge. Let him go. The first man stepped back, hands raised. Victoria didn't move. Tell your boss I'll meet him tomorrow, noon, the usual place. He's not going to like... He doesn't have to like it. He just has to show up. The older man studied her. Then he nodded. Tomorrow. They left. No rush, no drama. Just 3 men walking out of a park at 3 a.m. like it was nothing. When they were gone, Victoria turned to Adrian. You shouldn't have come. You called me. She stopped. I didn't think you'd actually come. Then why'd you call? She didn't have an answer for that. Adrian's hands were still shaking. What the hell is going on? I told you, I used to have a different life. That's not an explanation. It's all I can give you right now. Victoria, tomorrow, she said. After the meeting, I'll tell you everything. I promise. Adrian wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers now, wanted to understand why men with guns were looking for a woman who lived on a park bench. But he could see the exhaustion in her face, the fear she was trying to hide, so he nodded. Okay, tomorrow. Go home, Victoria said. Be with your daughter. Forget this happened. I'm not going to forget. I know. She smiled, sad and tired. That's the problem. Adrian walked home slowly, adrenaline fading into something heavier. When he got back, Chloe was still asleep. He sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe, the way he had 1,000 times before, and he wondered what the hell he'd gotten himself into. The next day dragged. Adrian went through the motions, meetings, calls, emails, but his mind was elsewhere. At 11:45, he told his assistant he was leaving early. She didn't ask questions. By noon, he was back at the park. The bench was empty. Adrian's chest tightened. He checked his phone. No messages, no missed calls. He waited. 12:15. 12:30. At 12:40, a black SUV pulled up to the park entrance. Then another. Then a third. Adrian's blood went cold. The doors opened. Men in suits stepped out, not the thugs from last night, but lawyers, corporate types, and behind them more security. And then Victoria. She stepped out of the center vehicle, and Adrian's breath caught, because this wasn't the woman from the bench. This was someone else entirely. She wore a tailored coat, dark and expensive. Her hair was down, styled. Her posture was different, shoulders back, chin up, every movement controlled and deliberate. She looked like money, old money, real money. And when she spoke, her voice carried across the park with the kind of authority that didn't ask for attention. It demanded it. "Gentlemen," she said, "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Adrian stood frozen, watching as the lawyers stepped forward, as briefcases were opened, as documents were produced. Victoria didn't look at him. She was focused entirely on the men in front of her, and when one of them tried to interrupt, she cut him off with a single raised hand. "No," she said, "you're done talking. I've spent 4 months gathering evidence, 4 months documenting every illegal move you made while I was gone, 4 months building a case that will bury you and everyone who helped you." One of the lawyers tried to speak. "Ms. Hayes, Ms. Hayes." Victoria's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "That's the first time you've called me that in months. Funny how respect comes back when you realize you've lost." "We can negotiate." "There's nothing to negotiate. The company is mine. It was always mine. My father built it, and when he died, it passed to me. Not to you, not to the board. To me. The shareholders will do what I tell them," Victoria said, "because I control 51% of the voting stock, and I just filed injunctions blocking every single attempt you made to dilute my shares." The lawyer went pale. Victoria stepped forward. "You tried to erase me, tried to make me disappear, tried to take everything I spent my life building." She leaned in close. "You failed." The lawyer opened his mouth, closed it, looked at the men behind him. No one moved. Victoria straightened. "My lawyers will be in touch. You have 48 hours to vacate your offices and turn over all company assets. If you refuse, I'll file criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. And unlike you, I have evidence." She turned and walked back toward the SUV. Then, for the first time, she looked at Adrian. Their eyes met. And in that moment, Adrian saw everything: the exhaustion, the relief, the fear that it still might fall apart, but also something else. Gratitude. She mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Then she was gone. The SUVs pulled away, leaving Adrian standing alone in the empty park. He stood there for a long time, trying to process what he'd just seen, trying to understand how the woman on the bench, the one who'd accepted his sandwiches with quiet grace, was the same person who'd just dismantled a corporate coup with the precision of a surgeon. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'll explain. I promise. But I need a few days to handle things. Don't come to the park. I won't be there. V." Adrian stared at the message. Then he typed back, "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." The response came immediately. "I know you will. That's why I trusted you." Bassam. Chloe asked about this lady that night. "Did you see her today?" She wanted to know. Adrian thought about how to answer. "Yeah, I did." "Is she okay?" "She's better than okay. She's going to be fine." Chloe studied him. "You look sad." "Not sad, just processing." "Processing what?" "That sometimes people aren't what they seem." "Is that bad?" "No," Adrian said slowly. "Not bad. Just complicated." Chloe seemed to accept this. She went back to her homework, colored pencils scratching across paper. Adrian sat down beside her. "You did a good thing, with the drawings. I just wanted her to know someone cared." She did know. She does. It mattered. Chloe looked up. "Will we see her again?" "I don't know, baby girl. Maybe." "I hope so." "Me too." And he meant it. 5 days passed. Adrian didn't go to the park, didn't try to call, didn't push. He just waited. On the 6th day, his phone rang. Victoria's voice was different now, stronger, more settled. "Can we talk?" "Yeah, of course." "There's a coffee shop on 5th and Brennan. Can you meet me there in an hour?" "I'll be there." She was already seated when he arrived, tucked into a corner booth, wearing jeans and a sweater that made her look almost normal. Almost. But Adrian could see it now, the way she carried herself, the quiet confidence that came from a lifetime of being in control. He slid into the seat across from her. "Hi," she said. "Hi." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Victoria said, "I owe you an explanation." "You don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do." She pulled out a tablet, opened a folder, and turned it toward him. On the screen was a photo. Victoria in a boardroom surrounded by executives, shaking hands with someone important. "That's me," she said, 6 months ago. Adrian looked at the photo, then at her. "You ran a company." "My father's company. Hayes Industrial, manufacturing, logistics, government contracts, worth about $400 million when he died. And you inherited it." "I did. But the board didn't want a 29-year-old woman in charge, so they tried to push me out. Quietly at first. Then, not so quietly." "What happened?" "They doctored financials, made it look like I was mismanaging funds, tried to get the shareholders to vote me out." "Did it work?" "Almost. But I saw it coming, so I disappeared." "To the park." "To the park," Victoria confirmed. "I needed time. Time to gather evidence, time to build a case, time to figure out who I could trust. And you couldn't trust anyone in your old life." "No." Adrian leaned back. "So you lived on a bench?" "For 4 months." "Why not a hotel? A safe house?" "Because they were watching everything, my accounts, my properties, my known associates. The only way to disappear completely was to become someone they'd never look for." "Someone homeless." "Yes." Adrian processed this. "And the guy who kept coming to the park?" "Private investigator, one of theirs. He'd been tracking me for weeks, but he could never confirm it was me. I was too careful." "And the men with guns?" Victoria's jaw tightened. "That was them escalating. They knew time was running out. If I could file the evidence before they forced me out, I'd win. So they tried to scare me into coming out of hiding." "Did it work?" "No, but you almost did." Adrian frowned. "What do you mean?" "When you showed up that night, when you didn't run even after seeing the gun, I realized I couldn't keep doing this alone. I was ready to fight them, but I wasn't ready to let you get hurt because of me." "So you called the meeting." "So I called the meeting." Victoria closed the tablet. "I filed everything the next morning. Injunctions, evidence, fraud charges. By noon it was over. The board folded. The company is mine again." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Adrian shook his head. "You could have told me." "Would you have believed me?" "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe you would have thought I was crazy, or dangerous, or lying." She had a point. "I kept your daughter's drawings," Victoria said quietly. "Every single one. They're in a safety deposit box now, along with everything else important." Adrian's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because they reminded me that not everyone sees the worst in people, that kindness exists even when you're at your lowest, that sometimes someone notices." She met his eyes. "You noticed me, Adrian. When I was invisible to everyone else, you saw me, you and Chloe, and that's not something I'll ever forget." Adrian didn't know what to say. Victoria reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. She slid it across the table. "What's this?" Adrian asked. "Open it." He did. Inside was a letter, typed on expensive letterhead, and a check. Adrian's eyes went wide when he saw the number. "No," he said immediately. "Absolutely not." "It's for Chloe," Victoria said, "for her education, for her future. I've also set up a trust that will cover tuition, books, housing, whatever she needs through graduate school if she wants it." "Victoria, I'm not done. There's also a job offer, CFO of Hayes Industrial. Starting salary is in the letter. Benefits, stock options, the whole package." Adrian stared at her. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. You don't even know if I'm qualified. You ran a startup from nothing to acquisition in 3 years. You manage a portfolio worth 8 figures. You made smart, disciplined decisions even when you had every reason to panic." She leaned forward. "You're more qualified than half the people who've held that position." "That's not, and more than that," Victoria continued, "you're someone I can trust. In my world, that's rarer than competence. Adrian looked at the check again. The number was absurd, life-changing. The kind of money that would mean Chloe never had to worry about student debt, never had to choose between dreams and practicality. But it felt wrong. I didn't do this for money, he said. I know, that's exactly why I'm offering it. Victoria, I'm not asking you to take charity, she said. I'm offering you a job you're qualified for and compensation your daughter deserves. What you do with it is up to you. Adrian set the envelope down. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Adrian said, What happens now, to you? Victoria smiled, real and warm and nothing like the guarded expression he'd seen for months. I go back to work. I fix what they broke. I rebuild. And the park? What about it? Will you go back? Victoria looked out the window. I don't think so. That part of my life is over. Good. She turned back to him. But I'll never forget it. Or you. Adrian nodded. Same. He told Chloe that night. Not everything. She didn't need to know about the guns or the fear or the danger, but he told her that the lady from the park was okay, that she'd been going through something hard and she'd come out the other side, and that she wanted to say thank you. Chloe beamed. Can I meet her? Adrian hesitated. Maybe. Someday. I'd like that. Me too, baby girl. That night after Chloe went to bed, Adrian sat at the kitchen counter and read the letter again. The job offer was real, the compensation was real, and the trust for Chloe was already established. He'd checked. Irrevocable. Legal. Done. Victoria had given his daughter a future, and she'd given him a choice. He thought about it for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and typed a message. I'll take the job, but I'm earning it. No special treatment. The response came quickly. I wouldn't expect anything less. Welcome to Hayes Industrial, Adrian. Let's build something good. Adrian smiled. For the first time in a long time, the future felt wide open, and it had all started with a sandwich. Adrian's first day at Hayes Industrial started at 7 in the morning, 2 weeks after that conversation in the coffee shop. He'd spent those 2 weeks tying up loose ends at his old job, explaining to Chloe why Daddy was going to be working somewhere new, and trying not to think about the fact that he was about to step into a world he'd only ever seen from the outside. The Hayes building was downtown, 42 stories of glass and steel that reflected the gray February sky like a mirror. Adrian stood on the sidewalk for a moment, coffee in hand, and looked up at it. This was real. This was happening. He went inside. The lobby was all marble and chrome, the kind of space designed to make you feel small. A security guard checked his ID, printed a temporary badge, and directed him to the executive elevators. 39th floor. The elevator moved so smoothly, Adrian barely felt it. When the doors opened, he stepped into a reception area that looked like it had been designed by someone who charged by the square foot. A woman in her 50s looked up from behind a desk. Mr. Cole? That's me. Welcome to Hayes. I'm Margaret, Ms. Hayes's executive assistant. She's expecting you. Margaret stood and led him down a hallway lined with offices, each one occupied by people who looked busy and expensive. They passed a conference room where a meeting was already in progress, voices raised in what sounded like a very polite argument. At the end of the hall, Margaret stopped at a set of double doors and knocked once. Come in, Victoria's voice called from inside. Margaret opened the door and stepped aside. Victoria's office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk that could have doubled as a landing strip, bookshelves filled with legal texts and financial reports. But what caught Adrian's attention was Victoria herself. She stood by the window, wearing a sharp gray suit, hair pulled back, looking every inch the CEO she was. When she turned, her expression was professional, controlled, but her eyes were warm. Adrian, she said. Good morning. Morning. Margaret closed the door, leaving them alone. Victoria gestured to the chairs in front of her desk. Sit, please. Adrian sat. The chair was leather, expensive, the kind that probably cost more than his first car. Victoria sat across from him, hands folded on the desk. How are you feeling? Honest answer? Always. Terrified. She smiled. Good. That means you're taking this seriously. I don't want to mess this up. You won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Victoria leaned back slightly. You know why I hired you, Adrian? Not because you have an MBA from some Ivy League school. Not because you've been CFO before. I hired you because you're the kind of person who shows up every day, no matter what. That's rarer than you think. Adrian didn't know what to say to that. Victoria opened a folder on her desk. I'm not going to lie to you. This job is going to be hard. The board is hostile. Half the executive team still thinks I'm too young to run this company. And the financial mess the previous CFO left behind is going to take months to untangle. What kind of mess? The kind where money went places it shouldn't have, and the paper trail was buried under 6 layers of shell companies. She slid the folder across the desk. This is what we know so far. It's not pretty. Adrian opened the folder and started reading. His stomach sank with every page. Fraudulent contracts, kickbacks, offshore accounts. The previous CFO hadn't just been corrupt. He'd been systematic about it. Jesus, Adrian muttered. Yeah. He looked up. How did no one catch this? Because the people who should have been watching were in on it. Victoria's expression hardened. My father trusted the wrong people. And when he died, they saw an opportunity to steal from the company, to gut it. If I hadn't disappeared when I did, if I hadn't spent those months gathering evidence, they would have succeeded. Adrian closed the folder. What do you need me to do? Fix it, all of it. Rebuild the financial systems from the ground up. Make sure this never happens again. That's a tall order. I know, but I also know you can do it. Adrian met her eyes. I'm going to need help. A team. You'll have one. I've already started vetting candidates, but the final decisions are yours. And the board? Let me worry about the board. Victoria, I'm serious, Adrian. You focus on the numbers. I'll handle the politics. He wanted to argue, but something in her tone told him it wouldn't matter. Okay, he said. When do I start? Victoria smiled. You already did. Bad. The next 3 months were brutal. Adrian had thought he understood hard work. Long hours, high stakes, pressure that made your chest tight and your sleep shallow. But this was different. This was corporate warfare, and he was right in the middle of it. The first week, he spent 14 hours a day reviewing financial records, tracking down discrepancies, and trying to make sense of a system that had been deliberately designed to be confusing. His team, 4 analysts Victoria had hired based on his recommendations, worked just as hard, but even together, progress was slow. The second week, he presented his preliminary findings to the board. It didn't go well. This is speculation, one of the board members said, a man in his 60s named Richard Castellan, who'd been with the company since before Victoria was born. You're accusing people of crimes based on incomplete data. It's not speculation when there's a paper trail, Adrian said evenly. A paper trail you've interpreted in the way that supports Ms. Hayes' narrative. It's not a narrative. It's fraud. Castellan's face reddened. You've been here 2 weeks, Mr. Cole. You don't know how this company works. I know how numbers work, and these don't add up. The meeting devolved from there. Half the board wanted Adrian fired on the spot. The other half wanted to wait and see. Victoria, sitting at the head of the table, stayed calm. We're not firing anyone, she said when the shouting finally died down. Mr. Cole is doing exactly what I hired him to do. If you have a problem with that, take it up with me. Castellan glared at her. This is a mistake, Victoria. Then it's my mistake to make. After the meeting, Adrian found Victoria in her office, staring out the window. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For pissing off your board. Victoria turned and she was smiling. Don't be. They needed to be pissed off. They've been comfortable for too long. Castellan's going to be a problem. Castellan's always been a problem, but he doesn't have the votes to remove me, and he knows it. Adrian leaned against the doorframe. How do you do it? Do what? Stay calm when they're screaming at you. Practice, and knowing I'm right. Must be nice. It is. Victoria's smile faded. But it's also exhausting. Some days I want to walk away. Let them have the company. Let them destroy it. Why don't you? Because my father built this, and I'm not going to let them erase him. Adrian understood that. more than she probably realized. By the end of the third month, Adrian had enough evidence to bring criminal charges against 3 former executives, including the previous CFO. He presented everything to Victoria in her office late one night, both of them running on coffee and stubbornness. "This is solid," Victoria said, flipping through the report. "The prosecutors will love it." "So we move forward?" "We move forward." Adrian exhaled. "Good." Victoria looked at him. "You've done incredible work, Adrian. I mean that. I had help. You built the team. You set the strategy. You pushed when everyone else wanted to wait." She set the report down. "You're exactly what this company needed." Adrian felt something tighten in his chest. Pride, maybe, or relief. "Thanks. I'm serious. You've earned this." "I'm still figuring it out." "We all are." They sat in silence for a moment. The city lights spread out below them like a galaxy. Then Victoria said, "How's Chloe?" Adrian smiled. "Good. Great, actually. She started a new school last month. Smaller classes, better teachers. She loves it." "Because of the trust." "Yeah, because of the trust." Victoria nodded. "I'm glad." "She asks about you sometimes." "Does she?" "She wants to meet you, properly." Victoria's expression softened. "I'd like that." "Yeah?" "Yeah." Adrian hesitated. "There's a school thing next week, an art show. Chloe's got a piece in it. If you're free, I'll be there." "You don't have to." "I want to." Adrian looked at her, surprised. Victoria smiled. "What? You think just because I run a company I don't have time for the people who matter?" "I don't know. Maybe." "Well, you're wrong. Again." The art show was in the school gymnasium, walls covered in drawings and paintings made by kids who still thought anything was possible. Adrian arrived early with Chloe, who was buzzing with nervous energy. "Do you think people will like it?" she asked for the 10th time. "I think it's amazing," Adrian said. "You have to say that. You're my dad." "Doesn't make it less true." Chloe's piece was near the back, a mixed media collage of drawings and cutouts, all centered around the theme of kindness. At the center was a bench, and on the bench were 2 figures, one giving, one receiving. Adrian's throat went tight when he saw it. "Is that the lady from the park?" Chloe said quietly. "And you?" "Chloe, I know she's okay now. I know she's different, but I wanted to remember when she needed us." Adrian knelt down so he was eye level with his daughter. "That's beautiful, baby girl." "You think she'll like it?" "I know she will." And she did. Victoria arrived 20 minutes later, dressed down in jeans and a sweater, looking more like a regular person than a CEO. When she saw the collage, she stopped. She stood there for a long time, just looking. Then she turned to Chloe. "Did you make this?" Chloe nodded, suddenly shy. "It's perfect," Victoria said, and her voice cracked just slightly. "You have real talent." Chloe beamed. "Thank you. Can I ask you something?" "Okay." Victoria knelt down, same as Adrian had. "Why did you draw this?" Chloe thought about it. "Because I wanted people to know that helping someone doesn't have to be big. It can just be noticing and showing up." Victoria's eyes went bright. She blinked, and the brightness disappeared, but Adrian saw it. "You're a very wise person, Chloe," Victoria said. "My dad says that too." "He's right." After the show, the 3 of them went to get ice cream, Chloe's request, and one Victoria agreed to without hesitation. They sat outside despite the cold, Chloe talking a mile a minute about school and friends and the science project she was working on. Victoria listened like it was the most important thing in the world. And watching them, Adrian felt something shift. This wasn't just a job anymore. This wasn't just gratitude or obligation or whatever he told himself it was. This was something else. Something that felt dangerously close to family. April came, and with it, the criminal trial. The prosecution moved fast, armed with the evidence Adrian had compiled. The former CFO and 2 other executives were arrested, charged with fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The media went wild. Hayes Industrial was suddenly front-page news, and not in a good way. Reporters camped outside the building. Shareholders demanded answers. The stock price dropped 12% in a week. Victoria handled it the way she handled everything, head on, no apologies. She gave interviews, held press conferences, stood in front of cameras and said, "We will not tolerate corruption, we will rebuild, and we will be stronger because of it." But Adrian could see the toll it was taking. She was tired, more tired than she'd been even during the worst of the park days. The kind of tired that came from fighting on every front at once. One night, after a particularly brutal board meeting, Adrian found her in her office with her head in her hands. "You okay?" he asked from the doorway. Victoria looked up. "No?" The honesty surprised him. "You want to talk about it?" "Not really." "You want company anyway?" She smiled, exhausted. "Yeah, I do." Adrian came in and sat down. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Victoria said, "Do you ever regret it, taking this job?" "No." "Not even a little?" "Not even a little." "Why not?" Adrian thought about it. "Because it's the hardest thing I've ever done, and that means it matters." Victoria laughed, soft and surprised. "That's a very Adrian answer." "Is that a bad thing?" "No, it's refreshing." They sat in silence again, but it was comfortable now, easy. Then Victoria said, "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing." "With what?" "All of it, the trial, the restructuring, fighting the board instead of finding a way to work with them." "You are doing the right thing." "How do you know?" "Because you're not doing what's easy. You're doing what's necessary." Victoria looked at him, and something in her expression softened. "You always know what to say." "Not always, but I try." She smiled. "Thank you, Adrian, for being here, for all of this." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." Adrian stood. "Get some rest, Victoria. Tomorrow's another fight." "Yeah, it is." The trial ended in June. All three defendants were found guilty. Sentencing would come later, but the verdict was enough. Hayes Industrial had won. Victoria threw a small celebration at the office. Nothing extravagant, just the core team that had made it happen. Adrian's finance team, the lawyers, a few key executives who'd stayed loyal, and Adrian. Victoria pulled him aside halfway through the night. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Sure you could have." "No, I couldn't." She looked at him seriously. "You took a chance on me when you didn't have to. You believed me when I was living on a bench and everyone else thought I was nobody." "You were never nobody." "I felt like it." "Well, you were wrong." Victoria smiled. "Stubborn as ever." "Yeah." She pulled an envelope from her jacket. "I have something for you." Victoria Chet's. "It's not money. Just open it." Adrian opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A stock certificate. 5% equity in Hayes Industrial. Adrian's hands went numb. "I can't accept this." "Too late. It's already filed." Victoria. "You've earned it, Adrian, more than earned it. And I want you invested in this company, not just as an employee, as a partner." Adrian stared at the certificate. 5% of a $400 million company. He did the math in his head and almost dropped it. "This is insane," he said. "It's fair." "It's fair," Victoria repeated firmly. "You saved this company. You saved me. This is what that's worth." Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and he saw it. The certainty, the gratitude, the absolute belief that she was doing the right thing. "Okay," he said quietly. "Thank you." "You're welcome." People. That night, after the celebration ended and everyone went home, Adrian sat in his office and called Chloe. She was at a friend's house for a sleepover, and she answered on the second ring. "Hi, Daddy." "Hi, baby girl. How's it going?" "Good. We're watching a movie." "What movie?" "The one with the talking animals." Adrian smiled. "Sounds fun." "Are you still at work?" "Yeah, but I'm heading home soon." "Okay, love you." "Love you too." He hung up and sat in the quiet office, looking out at the city. 5% equity. A partnership. A future that looked nothing like the one he'd imagined a year ago. And it had all started because he'd noticed someone who needed help. Adrian thought about the bench in the park, the brown paper bags, the quiet mornings when the world felt small and manageable. He missed it, in a strange way. Not the struggle, not the uncertainty, but the simplicity. The clear sense of purpose that came from doing one good thing every day without expecting anything in return. He wondered if he'd lost that somewhere along the way. Then his phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. "Thank you for tonight and for everything." Adrian smiled and typed back, "Any time." The response came immediately. "I'm holding you to that." Summer came. Chloe finished second grade with honors. Adrian took her on vacation, a week in the mountains, just the two of them. No work, no phones, no pressure. They hiked, they fished, they sat by the campfire and talked about everything and nothing. One night, Chloe asked, "Do you like your new job?" "Yeah, I do." "Even though it's hard?" "Especially because it's hard." Chloe poked at the fire with a stick. "Do you think the lady, Victoria, do you think she's happy now?" Adrian thought about it. "I think she's working on it." "What does that mean?" "It means being happy isn't something that just happens. You have to build it, same as anything else." "Are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. Was he? Adrian looked at his daughter, smart, kind, full of possibility, and felt something settle in his chest. "Yeah," he said. "I am." Chloe smiled. "Good. Bad." When they got back from vacation, there was a message waiting. Victoria wanted to meet, not at the office, somewhere else. She gave him an address. Adrian recognized it immediately. The park. He arrived at dawn, same time he used to. The air was cool, the sky just starting to lighten. Victoria was already there, sitting on the bench. Their bench. Adrian walked over slowly. "Hey. Hey." He sat down beside her. "Why here?" Victoria looked around at the dying grass, the cracked pavement, the trees that had seen better years. "Because I needed to remember." "Remember what?" "That none of this matters if I forget where I came from." She turned to him. "I've been so focused on rebuilding the company, on proving myself, that I almost lost sight of why I was fighting in the first place." "And why were you fighting?" "Because my father believed in something. He believed that business could be honest, that success didn't have to come at someone else's expense." She paused. "I want to believe that too." Adrian nodded. "So what are you going to do?" "Change things. Real changes, not just window dressing. Better wages for the factory workers. Profit sharing for employees, environmental standards that actually mean something. The board's going to hate that." "I know." "Shareholders might too." "Probably." "So why do it?" Victoria smiled. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because someone once showed me that doing the right thing doesn't require a reason beyond it being right." Adrian felt his throat tighten. "I just made sandwiches." "You did more than that. You saw me. You treated me like I mattered. That's not nothing, Adrian." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sun come up. Then Victoria said, "I'm going to need your help. With the changes. With pushing back against the people who think profit is the only thing that matters." "You've got it. It's going to be a fight." "Good," Adrian said. "I'm getting used to those." Victoria laughed. "Yeah, me too." The sun cleared the horizon, spilling golden light across the park. And for the first time in a long time, Adrian felt like everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. The changes started small. First, Victoria authorized a 15% wage increase for the manufacturing floor workers. The people who actually built the products Hayes Industrial sold. The ones who'd been making the same hourly rate for 6 years while executives collected bonuses. The board called an emergency meeting within hours. Adrian sat beside Victoria at the conference table, watching Castellan's face turn a disturbing shade of purple as he read the memo. "This is financial suicide," Castellan said, slamming the paper down. "Do you have any idea what this will do to our margins?" "It'll reduce them by 2%, Victoria said calmly. "I've run the numbers. 2% is millions of dollars. 2% is what we should have been paying them all along." Another board member, a woman named Patricia Drummond, who ran a hedge fund, leaned forward. "Victoria, I understand the sentiment, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders." "And I have a moral responsibility to the people who make this company function," Victoria replied. "The workers on that floor have been subsidizing executive compensation for years. That ends now." "You're being naive," Castellan said. "No, I'm being fair. Fair doesn't keep a company competitive. Victoria's expression hardened. Neither does a workforce that's one bad month away from quitting. Employee retention costs money. Training costs money. High turnover costs money. Paying people what they're worth is an investment, not charity. Adrian spoke up for the first time. The math supports it. We've modeled the long-term ROI, and over 5 years, this actually improves our bottom line. Castellan turned on him. Of course you'd say that. You're hurt. He stopped himself, but everyone knew what he'd been about to say. Her what? Adrian asked quietly. Castellan's jaw worked. Nothing. No, please, finish your thought. The room went silent. Victoria's voice cut through it like a blade. If you have something to say about my CFO, Richard, say it. Otherwise, sit down and vote. Castellan sat down. The vote was close. 6-4 in favor, but it passed. After the meeting, Adrian followed Victoria back to her office. That was ugly, he said. That was restrained. Victoria poured herself a glass of water, hands not quite steady. 6 months ago, he would have called you my boy toy right to your face. Adrian winced. Jesus. Welcome to corporate leadership, where sexism and racism are still alive and well. They just use better words. You want me to talk to him? No, I want you to ignore him. Victoria drank half the glass in one go. Castellan's old guard. He'll fight every change we make because change means admitting the old way was wrong, and men like him don't admit they're wrong. So what do? We outlast him. She set the glass down. He's 67, he'll retire eventually or die. Either way, we just have to survive until then. It wasn't a comforting thought, but it was realistic. The wage increase went into effect the following month. Adrian made a point of visiting the manufacturing floor the day the first paychecks went out. He wanted to see the impact firsthand, wanted to know if the numbers on paper translated to something real. The floor manager, a guy named Marcus who'd been with the company for 20 years, met him at the entrance. Mr. Cole, Marcus said, shaking his hand. Good to see you down here. Figured it was about time. How's it going? Honestly, best morale I've seen in a decade. Marcus gestured toward the floor, where workers operated machinery with practiced efficiency. People actually smile now. That's not nothing. The raise helped? The raise helped. But you know what helped more? Knowing someone upstairs actually gives a damn. Adrian felt something warm spread through his chest. Ms. Hayes cares a lot about this company, about the people in it. We can tell. And for what it's worth, people appreciate what you're doing too. I'm just doing my job. Yeah, but you're doing it right. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. That matters. Adrian spent the next hour walking the floor, talking to workers, listening to their concerns. Most of it was small stuff. Better ventilation in the West Wing, updated equipment that didn't break down every other week, more flexible shift scheduling for parents. He took notes on everything. When he got back to his office, he compiled it into a report and sent it to Victoria with a subject line that read, Things that actually matter. Her response came 10 minutes later. Let's fix all of it. Yeah, but not everyone was happy. 2 weeks after the wage increase, Adrian started noticing things. Small things at first, files that weren't where he'd left them, passwords that suddenly didn't work, meeting invitations that never arrived. Then it escalated. One morning, he came in to find his office door unlocked. His computer was on, even though he always shut it down at night. And when he checked the access logs, someone had logged into his account at 3 in the morning. Adrian went straight to Victoria. Someone's trying to dig up dirt on me, he said, closing her office door behind him. Victoria looked up from her laptop. What kind of dirt? I don't know, but someone accessed my files last night. Financial records, emails, personnel reviews. Did they take anything? Not that I can tell, but they were looking. Victoria's expression went cold. Castellan. You think? I know. He's done this before. When my father was alive, any executive who threatened his influence suddenly had ethics complaints filed against them. Mysterious audits, anonymous tips to the press. That's illegal? Yeah, but hard to prove. Victoria stood and walked to the window. He's scared, Adrian. You're good at your job, people respect you, and you're loyal to me. That makes you dangerous. So what do I do? Nothing. Let him look. He won't find anything because there's nothing to find. She turned back to him. But from now on, we document everything. Every conversation, every decision, every email. If he's building a case, we need to be ready to defend against it. Adrian nodded, but his stomach was in knots. He'd dealt with office politics before, but this was different. This was personal. This was someone actively trying to destroy him. And the worst part was, he had Chloe to think about. If this blew up, if Castellan found some angle to twist into a scandal, it wouldn't just hurt Adrian. It would hurt his daughter. That night, he sat at his kitchen counter and stared at his laptop, second-guessing every decision he'd made in the last 6 months. Should he have kept his old job? Should he have said no to Victoria's offer? Should he have just kept walking past that bench in January and never looked back? His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Stop spiraling. I can feel it from here. Adrian actually laughed. He typed back, How do you know I'm spiraling? Because I would be too. But here's the thing. We're doing the right thing, and that's worth fighting for. Even when it's this hard? Especially when it's this hard. Adrian set the phone down and took a breath. She was right. This was worth fighting for. Chloe noticed something was wrong. She always did. One night, while Adrian was helping her with homework, she stopped mid-sentence and looked at him. Daddy, are you okay? Yeah, baby girl, I'm fine. You don't seem fine. Adrian set down the pencil he'd been holding. Just work stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. Is it because of Victoria? No, not because of her. Because of some people who don't like the changes we're making. Chloe frowned. Why don't they like it? Because change is scary, even when it's good. That's dumb. Yeah, it kind of is. Chloe chewed on her bottom lip, thinking. Do you wish you hadn't taken the job? The question hit Adrian harder than he expected. No, he said, and he meant it. I don't wish that. Even though it's hard. Even though it's hard. Chloe seemed to accept this. She went back to her homework, pencil scratching across paper. But later, after she'd gone to bed, Adrian found a drawing on the kitchen counter. It was them. Stick figure Adrian and stick figure Chloe, holding hands. Above them, in Chloe's careful handwriting, it said, You're brave. Adrian folded the drawing carefully and put it in his wallet. He'd need the reminder. Yet, the next attack came in the form of an anonymous email to the board. Someone, Castellan, almost certainly, had compiled a dossier on Adrian. Every questionable decision he'd made at his previous job, every investment that hadn't panned out, every conflict with former colleagues, none of it was criminal. Most of it was just normal business friction, the kind everyone dealt with. But presented in the right way, it looked damning. The email suggested that Adrian was reckless, vindictive, and potentially dishonest. It questioned his qualifications. It implied that Victoria had hired him for personal reasons rather than professional merit. The board demanded a response. Victoria called Adrian into her office the day the email circulated. I need you to be honest with me, she said. Is any of this true? Adrian had expected the question. He'd prepared for it. Some of it's true. Most of it's taken out of context. He sat down across from her. At my last job, I made a call on an investment that didn't work out. We lost money. I took responsibility for it, restructured the portfolio, and recovered the losses within a year. That's the reckless decision-making they're talking about. And the conflict with colleagues? I fired someone for falsifying expense reports. They filed a complaint claiming I had a personal vendetta. HR investigated and cleared me. Adrian leaned forward. Victoria, none of this is new. It was all in my employment records when you hired me. I know? Then why are we having this conversation? Because the board doesn't know that. And Castellan is betting I'll panic and cut you loose to protect myself. Adrian's chest tightened. Are you going to? Victoria's expression was unreadable for a long moment. Then she smiled, sharp and fierce. Not a chance. Relief flooded through him. We're going to fight this, Victoria continued. I'm calling a special board meeting. You're going to present your side. We're going to drag every piece of context into the light and make Castellan look like the petty, desperate man he is. That's risky. So is doing nothing. Adrian thought about it, about Chloe, about the life he'd built, about how easy it would be to walk away and let someone else fight this battle. But he thought about the workers on the manufacturing floor too, About Marcus saying people smiled now. About Victoria sitting on a bench in January, invisible and alone, until someone noticed. "Okay," he said. "Let's fight." The special board meeting was scheduled for the following week. Adrian spent every spare moment preparing. He compiled documentation for every accusation in the anonymous email. He gathered testimonials from former colleagues. He built a timeline that showed not just his failures, but his recoveries. Victoria helped, working late into the night alongside him, ordering takeout and coffee and refusing to let him give up when the task felt impossible. "You know," Adrian said one night around midnight, rubbing his eyes, "a year ago I was making sandwiches at 6 in the morning. Now I'm fighting for my career in front of a corporate board. That's a hell of a pivot." Victoria looked up from her laptop. "Regret it? The sandwiches? No, those were simple. I meant all of it." Adrian considered the question seriously. "No, I don't regret it, but I won't lie. This is harder than I thought it would be. Most things worth doing are." "That's very fortune cookie of you," Victoria laughed. "I'm tired. My wisdom gets generic when I'm tired." They worked in companionable silence for another hour. Then Victoria said, "Adrian?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for not quitting. I'm stubborn. You should know that by now." "I do know, but I'm still grateful." Adrian met her eyes across the desk. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. The knowledge that they were in this together, for better or worse. "We're going to win this," Adrian said. "Yeah," Victoria agreed. "We are." Mark. The morning of the board meeting, Adrian woke up at 4 a.m., too anxious to sleep. He made coffee, reviewed his notes for the 100th time, called Chloe, who was staying with a friend, just to hear her voice. "You're going to do great, Daddy," she said sleepily. "How do you know?" "Because you always do." The faith in her voice steadied him. "Thanks, baby girl. I love you. Love you too." The meeting started at 9. Adrian walked into the conference room with Victoria beside him, both of them dressed for battle in their best suits. The board was already seated, all 10 of them, including Castellan, who looked smug and satisfied. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table. Adrian sat beside her. "Let's begin," Victoria said crisply. "We're here to address the allegations raised in the anonymous email circulated last week. Mr. Cole will be presenting his response. I expect everyone to listen with an open mind and ask questions based on facts, not speculation." Castellan leaned back in his chair. "Of course, we're all very interested to hear his explanation." The condescension in his tone was deliberate. Adrian ignored it. He stood, connected his laptop to the projector, and began. For the next 45 minutes, he walked through every accusation. He provided context. He showed documentation. He presented testimonials from colleagues who vouched for his character and competence. He was thorough, methodical, unshakable. And he watched the mood in the room shift. Some board members started asking genuine questions, not attacks, but clarifications. Others looked uncomfortable, clearly realizing they'd been manipulated. Castellan's smugness faded. When Adrian finished, Victoria spoke. "Does anyone have additional questions for Mr. Cole?" Patricia Drummond raised her hand. "I have one. Mr. Cole, why didn't you disclose these incidents during your interview process?" "I did," Adrian said calmly. "They're all in my employment file. Ms. Hayes had access to everything before she made her offer." Drummond turned to Victoria. "Is that true?" "Completely true. I vetted Mr. Cole extensively before hiring him. Nothing in that email was news to me." Castellan finally spoke. "Ellen, then why are we here?" "Because someone tried to use out-of-context information to undermine my CFO's credibility," Victoria said coldly, "and I wanted to make sure the board understood that I won't tolerate that kind of manipulation." "You're accusing me." "I'm not accusing anyone, Richard. I'm stating a fact. Someone sent that email. Someone compiled that dossier. And whoever did it wasted everyone's time with information that was already part of the hiring record." Castellan's face went red. This is over," Victoria interrupted. "Unless someone has a legitimate concern about Mr. Cole's performance, I'm calling this meeting adjourned." Silence. No one spoke. "Good," Victoria said. "Then we're done here." The board filed out slowly. Some members avoided eye contact. Others nodded at Adrian as they passed, a small acknowledgement that he'd won this round. Castellan was the last to leave. He stopped at the door and looked back at Victoria. "This isn't finished," he said quietly. "Yes," Victoria replied. "It is." He left. Adrian exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. "You okay?" Victoria asked. "Yeah, I think so." "You did great." "We did great." Victoria smiled. "Yeah, we did." Well, that evening, Adrian picked up Chloe and took her out for pizza to celebrate. She asked how it went, and he gave her the kid-friendly version. "It went well. Everything's fine." "Did you win?" "Yeah, baby girl. I think I did." Chloe grinned. "I knew you would." They ate pizza and played video games and talked about nothing important, and for a few hours, Adrian let himself forget about corporate warfare and office politics. But later, after Chloe was asleep, he sat on the couch and let himself feel it. The exhaustion, the relief, the lingering anxiety that this wasn't really over, just paused. His phone buzzed. "Victoria, drink?" Adrian hesitated. Then, "Where?" "My place. I'll send the address." 20 minutes later, Adrian was standing outside a building in the financial district. Victoria lived on the top floor, a penthouse with views of the entire city. She answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, barefoot, looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. "Come in," she said. The apartment was beautiful, modern, clean, expensive, but it was also lived in. Books stacked on the coffee table, a blanket thrown over the couch, photos on the walls, most of them older people Adrian assumed were family. Victoria handed him a glass of whiskey. "To surviving." Adrian clinked his glass against hers. "To surviving." They drank. Then Victoria said, "I'm sorry you had to go through that. It's not your fault." "It kind of is. You wouldn't be a target if I hadn't hired you. And I wouldn't have this life if you hadn't hired me. So it evens out." Victoria looked at him for a long moment. "You really don't regret it, do you?" "No, I really don't." "Even though it's complicated and messy and nothing like what you signed up for?" "That's life, isn't it? Complicated and messy?" Victoria laughed. "Yeah, I guess it is." They sat down on the couch, drinks in hand, city lights spread out below them. "Can I ask you something?" Adrian said. "Sure." "Why me?" "Really? You could have hired anyone. Someone with an MBA from Harvard. Someone who'd worked at bigger companies, handled bigger budgets. Why'd you pick me?" Victoria swirled her whiskey, thinking. "Because when you looked at me on that bench, you didn't see a homeless woman. You didn't see a problem or a charity case. You saw a person. And you treated me with dignity when I had nothing. That's not special. That's just basic decency." "Adrian, basic decency is a lot rarer than you think, especially in my world." She set her glass down. "I needed someone I could trust, someone who wouldn't try to use me or manipulate me or see me as a stepping stone to something else. And I knew, from those 4 months, that you were that person." Adrian didn't know what to say. Victoria smiled. "Plus, you're really good at your job. That helped." "Well, that's a relief." They talked for another hour about everything and nothing, about Chloe's school play coming up, about Victoria's plans for the company, about the fact that neither of them had dated anyone in years and probably wouldn't have time even if they wanted to. It was easy, comfortable, like talking to someone who actually understood. When Adrian finally left, it was past midnight. Victoria walked him to the door. "Thanks for coming," she said. "Thanks for the whiskey." "Any time." Adrian hesitated. "Victoria?" "Yeah?" "We're going to be okay. All of this. It's going to work out." She smiled, genuine and warm. "I believe you." And for a while it did work out. The rest of the summer was relatively calm. The company stabilized. The wage increase improved morale just like Adrian had predicted. Profits dipped slightly but stayed healthy. Castellan stayed quiet, which made Adrian more nervous than if he'd been loud. But Victoria kept moving forward. She launched a profit-sharing program for employees. She implemented new environmental standards. She started a scholarship fund for kids whose parents worked at Hayes Industrial. Every change met resistance. Every change passed anyway. And slowly, the company started to look different, feel different, like something worth believing in. Adrian worked harder than he'd ever worked in his life. But he also made time for Chloe. School events, weekend hikes, movie nights where they ate too much popcorn and argued about whether the ending was good or not. He made time for Victoria too. Dinners after late meetings, texts about nothing important, moments of quiet where they didn't have to perform or prove anything. They were building something, not just a company, a life. And it was good, right up until it wasn't. The crisis hit on a Tuesday in October. Adrian was in a budget review meeting when his phone started buzzing. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. He ignored it. Whatever it was could wait. Then Margaret appeared in the doorway, face pale. "Mr. Cole, you need to come with me." The tone in her voice made everyone in the room go quiet. Adrian stood. "What's wrong?" "It's Ms. Hayes. There's been an incident." His stomach dropped. "What kind of incident?" "Just come. Please." Adrian grabbed his phone and followed Margaret down the hall at a near run. His missed calls were all from Victoria's assistant, from building security, from someone in legal. They took the elevator to Victoria's floor. When the doors opened, Adrian saw immediately that something was very wrong. Security guards stood outside Victoria's office. The door was open, and through it Adrian could see people moving around, examining things, taking photos. "What the hell is going on?" Adrian demanded. Margaret's voice was barely above a whisper. "Someone broke into Ms. Hayes' office last night. They accessed her computer, her files, everything." "Where's Victoria?" "In the small conference room with legal." Adrian pushed past the security guards and headed for the conference room. He didn't knock, just opened the door. Victoria sat at the table with 3 lawyers, looking smaller than Adrian had ever seen her. Her face was drawn, exhausted, and when she looked up at him, he saw something that made his chest constrict. "Fear." "Adrian," she said quietly. "What happened?" One of the lawyers, a stern woman named Patricia Chen, spoke up. "Mr. Cole, this is a confidential—" "He stays," Victoria interrupted. "Tell him." Chen sighed. "Someone gained access to Ms. Hayes' office between midnight and 3 a.m. last night. They bypassed building security, disabled the camera feeds, and spent approximately 2 hours accessing her files." "What files?" Adrian asked. "Everything. Financial records, strategic plans, personnel files, communications with the board." Chen paused. "And the evidence from the fraud case." Adrian's blood went cold. "The sealed evidence? The stuff that's still under court protection?" "Yes." "How is that possible? That's encrypted, password protected?" "They knew the passwords," Victoria said flatly, "or they had someone who could crack them. Either way, they got everything." Adrian sat down heavily. "Castellan." "We don't know that," Chen said quickly. "The hell we don't," Adrian shot back. "Who else would want that information? Who else has been fighting us every step of the way?" "Speculation doesn't help," Chen said. "We need evidence." "Then get it. Pull security logs, interview the guards, check access cards. We're doing all of that. But Mr. Cole, whoever did this was professional. They knew exactly what they were doing." Victoria stood abruptly. "Can you give us a minute?" The lawyers exchanged glances, then filed out. When the door closed, Victoria walked to the window and pressed her forehead against the glass. "I can't believe this is happening again," she said quietly. Adrian went to her. "Hey, look at me." She turned and her eyes were wet. "We're going to fix this," Adrian said. "How?" "They have everything, Adrian, every strategy, every plan. They know exactly what we're going to do before we do it." "So we changed the plan." "It's not that simple." "It never is. But we've dealt with worse." "Have we?" Victoria's voice cracked. "Because right now it feels like I'm back on that bench, watching everything fall apart, and I can't stop it." Adrian took her hands. They were cold, trembling slightly. "You're not on that bench," he said firmly. "You're here. You have a company, a team, people who believe in you. You have me." Victoria looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. "Why do you always know what to say?" "I don't. I'm making it up as I go." She laughed, broken and wet. "We're so screwed." "Probably. But we'll figure it out." For a moment, they just stood there, hands clasped, the weight of everything pressing down on them. Then Victoria pulled herself together. She wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders, and the CEO came back. Okay, she said. We need to control the narrative before whoever took this leaks it. Agreed. What's the worst they have? Victoria thought about it. The fraud case details could embarrass some former executives, but that's already public knowledge. The strategic plans are valuable, but not devastating. The real problem is the personnel files. What's in them? Performance reviews, disciplinary actions, salary information, private conversations about board members. She met Adrian's eyes. Including everything about you, your hiring, the dossier Castellan compiled, my notes defending you. Adrian's jaw tightened. So if they leak it, it looks like I hired you for personal reasons and then protected you when questions were raised. It undermines everything we've built. That's not what happened. I know that. You know that. But it's how it'll look. Adrian paced the small room, thinking, what if we get ahead of it? How? We release it ourselves, on our terms, with context. Victoria stared at him. That's insane. So is waiting for them to control the story. If we put it out there first, the hiring records, the vetting process, the board presentations, we prove there was nothing inappropriate. The board will lose their minds. Some of them will. But the ones who matter, the ones who've actually seen your leadership, they'll understand. Adrian stopped pacing. Victoria, we can't win by hiding. We have to fight. She was quiet for a long moment, weighing the options. Then she nodded. Okay, let's do it. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Adrian compiled every document related to his hiring, employment records, interview notes, reference checks, the financial analysis that had justified his compensation. He organized it chronologically, building a narrative that was clear and defensible. Victoria worked with legal to determine what they could release without violating privacy laws or contractual obligations. It was a delicate balance, transparency versus protection, truth versus liability. By 8 p.m., they had a plan. They would hold a press conference the next morning. Victoria would present the facts directly, answer questions, and make it clear that Hayes Industrial had nothing to hide. It was risky. It was potentially disastrous, but it was better than waiting for the axe to fall. Adrian went home late that night, exhausted and wired. Chloe was already asleep, and he stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe. She looked so peaceful, so unaware of the storm brewing around them. He wondered how much this would touch her. If kids at school would hear things, if she'd have to defend her father against accusations she didn't understand. The thought made him feel sick. His phone buzzed. Victoria, can't sleep. Adrian typed back, me either. Second thoughts? About tomorrow? No. About getting into this mess in the first place? Maybe. Liar. You don't regret it. Adrian smiled despite everything. No, I don't. Good. Because I need you tomorrow, not just as my CFO, as my friend. The word hit Adrian harder than he expected. Friend. When had that happened? When had this professional relationship become something deeper, something that mattered beyond the job? He typed, you've got me. Whatever happens. Thank you, Adrian. He set the phone down and finally went to bed, but sleep didn't come easy. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the main conference hall. By 9:30, the room was packed. Journalists, bloggers, financial analysts, even a few television crews. Word had gotten out that Hayes Industrial had something important to announce, and everyone wanted the story. Adrian stood backstage with Victoria, both of them in their best armor. She wore a navy suit, hair pulled back, every inch the composed executive. But Adrian could see the tension in her jaw, the way her hands kept flexing. You ready? He asked. No, but we're doing this anyway. That's the spirit. She looked at him. If this goes sideways, if it damages your reputation or affects Chloe, it won't. And even if it does, I made my choice. I'm not backing out now. Victoria nodded, took a breath, and walked onto the stage. The room quieted immediately. Good morning, Victoria said, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone. Thank you all for coming. I'm Victoria Hayes, CEO of Hayes Industrial. I'm here today to address some concerns that have been raised about our company's leadership and hiring practices. She paused, letting the room settle. Last night, someone broke into my office and stole confidential files. Among those files were personnel records, including documentation related to the hiring of our CFO, Adrian Cole. I have reason to believe these files will be leaked with the intent to suggest impropriety in his hiring. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. So I'm going to save them the trouble, Victoria continued. I'm going to tell you exactly how and why I hired Adrian Cole, and I'm going to provide every piece of documentation to prove it was merit-based, thoroughly vetted, and entirely appropriate. She nodded to someone off stage and the presentation began. For the next 30 minutes, Victoria walked through everything. The job posting, the interview process, the reference checks, the financial analysis showing Adrian's qualifications, the board presentations where she defended her choice. She was methodical, thorough, unshakable. And then she brought Adrian onto the stage. "Mr. Cole," a journalist called out immediately, "there are suggestions that Ms. Hayes hired you because of a personal relationship. How do you respond?" Adrian stepped to the microphone. "I respond by pointing to the numbers. Since I started as CFO, Hayes Industrial has improved its profit margins by 8%, reduced operating costs by 12%, and successfully prosecuted 3 executives for fraud. Those are facts, not opinions." "But you met Ms. Hayes before you were hired, didn't you?" "I did. I met her when she was living on a park bench, and I didn't know who she was. I gave her sandwiches. That's the extent of our relationship before she offered me this job." The room went silent. Then another journalist spoke up. "You're saying the CEO of a $400 million company was homeless?" Victoria stepped forward. "I wasn't homeless. I was hiding from people who were trying to steal my company. Mr. Cole showed me kindness during that time without knowing who I was or what I was worth. That told me something about his character. But I didn't hire him for his character. I hired him because he's brilliant at his job." "Can you prove that?" "I just did, for 30 minutes. Were you not paying attention?" A few people laughed. The questions continued for another 20 minutes. Some were hostile, some were genuinely curious. Victoria and Adrian answered all of them, tag-teaming when necessary, presenting a united front. Finally, Victoria wrapped it up. "I want to be clear about something," she said. "Hayes Industrial is changing. We're paying our workers fairly. We're holding executives accountable. We're building a company that values people over profit margins. Not everyone likes that. Not everyone wants it to succeed. But we're going to keep doing it anyway." She stepped back from the microphone. The room erupted in questions, but Victoria and Adrian walked off stage together. In the quiet hallway behind the conference room, they stopped. "Well," Victoria said, "that happened." "Yeah. Think it worked?" "I think we'll know by tomorrow morning when the articles start dropping." Victoria leaned against the wall, suddenly looking exhausted. "I hate this part. The waiting." "Me too." They stood there in silence for a moment. Then Victoria said, "Thank you for going up there with me. Where else would I be?" She smiled, tired but genuine. "Nowhere, apparently. You're stuck with me now. Could be worse. Could be better. Nah, I think this is pretty good." The articles started appearing that afternoon. Most were fair, presenting the facts Victoria had laid out and allowing readers to draw their own conclusions. A few were skeptical but not hostile, and 1 or 2 were outright supportive, praising Hayes Industrial for transparency. But there was one that made Adrian's blood boil. It was an opinion piece in a major financial publication written by someone who'd clearly talked to Castellan. The headline read, "Billionaire CEO's Questionable Judgment, When Charity Becomes Nepotism." The article twisted everything, made it sound like Victoria had hired Adrian out of pity or guilt, suggested that his qualifications were exaggerated, implied that the board had serious concerns about his competence. It was a hit piece, pure and simple. Adrian called Victoria immediately. "Did you see it?" he asked. "Yeah, I saw it." "We should respond. Issue a statement, provide more documentation?" "No." "Victoria, Adrian, if we respond, we give it legitimacy. We make it a story. Right now, it's one opinion piece in a sea of fair coverage. Let it go." "I can't just let it go. They're calling you naive. They're saying I'm unqualified." "I know what they're saying, and I also know it's not true. So do you. So does everyone who actually matters." Her voice softened. "Let it go, please." Adrian wanted to argue, wanted to fight back, defend both of them against the accusations. But she was right. Sometimes the only way to win was to refuse to play. "Okay," he said. "I'll let it go." "Thank you." That night, Adrian tried to follow his own advice. He made dinner with Chloe, helped her with homework, read her a story before bed. But when she was asleep, he pulled up the article again and read it 3 more times, each word cutting a little deeper. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Stop reading it." Adrian actually laughed. He typed, "How do you know I'm reading it?" "Because I've read it 5 times, and I know you're just as stubborn as me." "Fair point. Come over. Bring ice cream." Adrian hesitated. It was almost 10 p.m. Chloe was asleep. He'd have to call the neighbor to sit with her, and that felt like too much trouble for... "Please, I don't want to be alone right now." Adrian called the neighbor. 20 minutes later, he was at Victoria's door with 2 pints of ice cream and a bag of cookies. She answered in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, hair down, no makeup. She looked young and tired and real. "You came," she said. "You asked." They settled on her couch with the ice cream, eating straight from the containers like kids. "This is probably not CEO behavior," Victoria said, around a mouthful of chocolate chip. "Probably not CFO behavior either. Good thing we're off the clock." They ate in silence for a while, some mindless cooking show playing on the TV neither of them was really watching. Then Victoria said, "Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing? With the company? With everything, the changes, the fights, the constant battle against people who want us to fail." Adrian thought about it. "Sometimes. But then I think about Marcus on the manufacturing floor, telling me people smile now. I think about your scholarship fund giving kids opportunities they wouldn't have had. I think about Chloe's drawings and what they meant to you when you had nothing." He set down his ice cream. "And I think, yeah, we're doing the right thing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Victoria's eyes were bright. "You're a good person, Adrian Cole." "I'm really not. I'm just trying." "That's what makes you good. You keep trying even when it would be easier to quit." They sat closer now, shoulders touching, the space between them comfortable and warm. "Can I tell you something?" Victoria asked quietly. "Anything." "When I was on that bench, I thought I'd lost everything. My company, my reputation, my sense of self. And then you showed up with your sandwiches and your daughter's drawings, and you treated me like I mattered, like I was visible." She turned to look at him. "You saved me, Adrian. Not the company. Me." Adrian's throat went tight. "You saved yourself. I just showed up." "No, you did more than that. You reminded me that kindness exists, that not everyone's out to use you or hurt you or take what you have." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "You reminded me what it feels like to trust someone." The air between them shifted, charged with something unspoken. Adrian knew he should move, should make a joke, change the subject, put distance between them before this turned into something complicated. But he didn't move. Neither did Victoria. "Adrian," she said softly. "Yeah? I don't want to be alone tonight." It wasn't an invitation, not really, just a statement of fact, a need spoken aloud. "Okay," Adrian said, "then you won't be." They stayed on the couch, eventually lying down, Victoria's head on Adrian's chest, his arm around her shoulders. The ice cream melted, forgotten on the coffee table. The TV played on, unwatched, and they fell asleep like that. 2 people who'd been fighting so hard for so long that they'd forgotten what it felt like to just rest. Adrian woke to his phone ringing at 6 a.m. He was still on Victoria's couch, her warm weight against him, his arm numb from being in the same position all night. The phone kept ringing. He carefully extracted himself and grabbed it. Margaret. "Hello?" His voice was rough with sleep. "Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry to call this early, but you need to see the news." Adrian's stomach dropped. "What news?" "Just turn on Channel 7. I'll see you at the office." She hung up. Adrian found the remote and switched channels. It took a moment to find Channel 7, and when he did, his blood went cold. The headline scrolling across the bottom of the screen read, "Hayes Industrial Board Member Arrested in Corporate Espionage Case." And there, in handcuffs being led out of his home, was Richard Castellan. Victoria stirred beside him. "What's going on?" Adrian turned up the volume. The reporter was speaking. "Arrested early this morning in connection with the break-in at Hayes Industrial Headquarters. Sources say building security footage captured Mr. Castellan accessing the executive floor after hours, and that his office keycard was used to bypass multiple secure areas. The district attorney's office has confirmed they are pursuing charges of corporate espionage, theft of trade secrets, and obstruction of justice." Victoria sat up, fully awake now. "Oh my God." They watched in silence as the report continued, showing footage of Castellan being loaded into a police car, his face pale and drawn. Adrian's phone rang again. This time it was Chen, the lawyer. "Mr. Cole, I assume you've seen the news." "Yeah, what happened?" "Building security finally cracked the access logs from the night of the break-in. Turns out Castellan made a critical mistake. He used his own keycard to get past one of the internal checkpoints. They have him on camera." "Holy shit." "Indeed, the DA moved fast once we provided the evidence. He's facing serious charges." "What does this mean for us?" "It means you won. Victoria won. Hayes Industrial won." Chen's voice had a hint of satisfaction. "The board is calling an emergency meeting this afternoon to formally remove Castellan. After this, I doubt anyone will question your leadership again." After the call ended, Adrian and Victoria sat in stunned silence. "We won," Victoria said finally. "Yeah, we did." "I can't believe he was that stupid, using his own key card." "Arrogance makes people stupid." Victoria laughed, a little hysterical. "We actually won." Adrian pulled her into a hug, and she held on tight, shaking slightly. "It's over," he said into her hair. "The worst of it is over." "Promise?" "I promise." They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the early morning light, the weight of the last year finally lifting. The emergency board meeting that afternoon was swift and decisive. Castellan was removed from the board with a unanimous vote. 2 other members who'd been his closest allies resigned rather than face questions about their own involvement. Victoria appointed 3 new board members, people she'd vetted carefully, people who believed in the direction she was taking the company. For the first time since she'd taken control, she had a board that actually supported her. The relief was almost overwhelming. That evening, Victoria called an all-hands meeting. Every employee who could attend packed into the main auditorium, hundreds of faces looking up at the stage where she stood. "I want to thank you all for your patience over the last year," Victoria said. "I know it's been chaotic. I know there have been moments when it seemed like this company might not survive." She paused, looking out at the crowd. "But we did survive. Because of you. Because you showed up every day and did your jobs and believed in what we're building here." Applause rippled through the room. "We're not perfect," Victoria continued. "We're going to make mistakes. We're going to face challenges. But I promise you this. We will face them with integrity. We will treat you with respect. And we will build something worth being proud of." The applause grew louder. Adrian watched from the side of the stage, and something in his chest expanded. This was it. This was what they'd been fighting for. Not just a company, a community. After the meeting, employees came up to shake Victoria's hand, to thank her, to tell her stories about how the changes had affected their lives. One woman, a line worker named Sandra, had tears in her eyes. "My daughter starts college next fall," she said, "because of your scholarship fund. I never thought we'd be able to afford it, but now—" Her voice broke. Thank you so much." Victoria hugged her, and Adrian saw her blinking back her own tears. Later, much later, when everyone had gone home and the building was quiet, Adrian found Victoria in her office, staring out at the city. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just processing." He came to stand beside her. "Hell of a day." "Hell of a year." "True." Victoria turned to him. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Yeah, you could have." "No, I really couldn't." She took his hand. "You've been my partner through all of this, my friend, my—" She stopped, and Adrian saw her searching for the right word. He didn't need her to find it. "I know," he said simply. "Me too." They stood there, hands clasped, looking out at the city they'd fought so hard to make a difference in. And for the first time in what felt like forever, the future looked clear. The weeks after Castellan's arrest felt like breathing for the first time in months. The board was cooperative, almost enthusiastic. The press coverage shifted from skeptical to cautiously optimistic. Employee morale hit levels Adrian had never seen in any company he'd worked for. And for a brief, shining moment, it seemed like maybe they'd actually pulled it off. But Adrian knew better than to trust moments like these. He'd learned that good things were fragile, that success made you a target, that the higher you climbed, the farther you had to fall. So he kept working, kept pushing, kept looking over his shoulder for the next crisis. It came from a direction he didn't expect. It came from Chloe. She'd been quiet lately, more withdrawn than usual. Adrian had noticed, but chalked it up to normal 8-year-old moods, the kind of thing that came and went with homework stress or friend drama. But one night in late October, she came into the kitchen while he was making dinner and said, "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always, baby girl." "Do you like Victoria?" Adrian's hand froze on the knife he'd been using to chop vegetables. "What do you mean?" "I mean like her. The way grown-ups like each other." His heart hammered. "Why are you asking?" Chloe shrugged, trying to look casual but failing. "I don't know. You talk about her a lot. You smile when she texts. And sometimes you come home really late and you smell like her perfume." Adrian set down the knife carefully. He should have seen this coming, should have realized that Chloe, who noticed everything, would pick up on the shift in his relationship with Victoria. Because there had been a shift. It started after that night on the couch, after Castellan's arrest, after all the adrenaline and fear and relief had crashed into something softer. They'd started spending more time together outside of work. Dinners that weren't about business, conversations that had nothing to do with the company, moments where they were just Adrian and Victoria, not CFO and CEO. They hadn't labeled it, hadn't discussed what it meant, but Chloe had noticed anyway. "I care about her," Adrian said carefully. "She's important to me." "But do you like her? Would that bother you if I did?" Chloe thought about it, her face serious. "I don't know. Maybe." "Why?" "Because what if she stops liking you? What if she decides she doesn't want us around anymore?" Adrian's chest tightened. He knelt down so he was eye level with his daughter. "Chloe, Victoria isn't going anywhere. Even if things changed between us, she'd still care about you. You know that, right?" "How do you know?" "Because I know her, and I know how much you mean to her." Chloe's eyes were wet. "But what if you're wrong? What if she's just being nice because she feels bad about how we met her? That's not why she cares about you." "How do you know?" It was a fair question, and Adrian realized he didn't have a perfect answer, just a feeling built on months of watching Victoria interact with Chloe, seeing the genuine warmth in her eyes when his daughter talked about school or showed her a new drawing. "I know," Adrian said finally, "because people who are just being nice don't remember every detail you tell them. They don't show up to your art shows. They don't ask about your science projects or laugh at your jokes or keep every single thing you make for them." Chloe sniffled. "She keeps my drawings. All of them, in a special box." "Really? Really?" Chloe wiped her eyes. "Okay. Okay? I think it's okay if you like her, as long as you don't forget about me." Adrian pulled her into a hug. "Baby girl, I could never forget about you. You're the most important person in my entire world. Nothing and no one will ever change that. Promise?" "Promise." They stayed like that for a long moment, Adrian breathing in the kid shampoo smell of his daughter's hair, feeling the weight of responsibility and love that had defined every decision he'd made since she was born. When they pulled apart, Chloe said, "Can I meet her? Like, actually meet her? Not just at school things? You want that?" "Yeah, I think so." Adrian smiled. "I'll ask her." He texted Victoria that night after Chloe was asleep. "Chloe wants to have dinner with you. With us. Like an actual dinner, not a work thing." The response came quickly. "I'd love that." "When?" "This weekend? Saturday? Perfect." "My place or yours?" Adrian thought about it. His apartment was smaller, more lived in, full of Chloe's things and the comfortable chaos of single parenthood. Victoria's penthouse was beautiful but formal, the kind of place where you worried about breaking something expensive. "Yours." "But we're cooking." "And you're helping. I don't cook. You're learning. Saturday at 4. Bring an apron." I don't own an apron. Then buy one. This is happening. There was a pause. Then, okay, but if I set your kitchen on fire, that's on you. Adrian laughed out loud. Saturday came faster than he expected. Chloe was nervous, changing her outfit 3 times and asking repeatedly if her hair looked okay. You look perfect, Adrian said for the 4th time. What if she doesn't like me? She already likes you. She's liked you since you started leaving drawings in my bag. But what if she's just pretending? Adrian knelt down and took her hands. Chloe, Victoria doesn't pretend about anything. If she didn't want to see you, she would have said no. The fact that she said yes means she wants this. Chloe took a shaky breath. Okay. They took a cab to Victoria's building. Chloe pressed against Adrian's side the whole way, radiating anxiety. When they arrived, Victoria was waiting in the lobby, and Adrian's breath caught. She wore jeans and a simple blue sweater, hair loose around her shoulders, looking more relaxed than he'd seen her in months. When she saw them, her face lit up. Hi, she said, coming over. Hi, Adrian replied. Victoria looked down at Chloe. Hey, Chloe. Thanks for coming. Chloe nodded, suddenly shy. I hope you're ready to teach me how to cook, Victoria continued, because your dad seems to think I need the help. That got a small smile. What are we making? I was thinking pasta. Is that okay? I like pasta. Good. Me too. They rode the elevator up together, Chloe gradually relaxing as Victoria asked her about school, about her favorite subjects, about the book she was reading. By the time they reached the penthouse, Chloe was talking normally, her earlier nervousness fading. Victoria's kitchen was enormous and intimidating, all marble and stainless steel. Okay, Adrian said, rolling up his sleeves. First rule of cooking, don't be scared of the ingredients. I'm not scared of ingredients, Victoria said. You look terrified of that onion. It's very large. Chloe giggled. For the next hour, they cooked together. Adrian directing, Chloe helping, Victoria following instructions with the intense focus she usually reserved for board meetings. She was terrible at it. She cut the vegetables unevenly, oversalted the sauce, and nearly burned the garlic. But she laughed at her mistakes. Asked Chloe for advice. Didn't try to pretend she was good at something she clearly wasn't. And watching her, Adrian felt something settle in his chest. Something that felt dangerously like happiness. They ate dinner at Victoria's dining table, pasta that was slightly imperfect but delicious, conversation flowing easily. Chloe told Victoria about the drama in her 3rd grade class, about the boy who kept pulling her hair and the teacher who didn't believe her when she said she'd finished reading the whole library section. Victoria listened like it was the most important thing in the world. You know, she said thoughtfully, when I was your age, there was a boy who kept taking my lunch. Every day. And when I told the teacher, she said I was making it up. What did you do? Chloe asked. I waited until lunch, and when he tried to take my sandwich, I dumped my entire thermos of soup on his head. Chloe's eyes went wide. You didn't. I absolutely did. Got sent to the principal's office. Totally worth it. Chloe laughed, delighted. Did you get in trouble? Oh yeah. Big trouble. But he never took my lunch again. That's so cool, Victoria smiled. The point is, sometimes you have to stand up for yourself even when it's hard, even when people don't believe you. Is that what you did when those people tried to steal your company? The question surprised both adults. Victoria met Chloe's eyes. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I'm glad you won. Me too. After dinner, Chloe asked if she could draw, and Victoria set her up with paper and markers at the coffee table while she and Adrian cleaned the kitchen. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, loading the dishwasher and wiping down counters. Then Victoria said quietly, She's amazing. Yeah, she is. You did good, raising her alone. I did my best. Some days that was barely enough. It was more than enough. Victoria turned to him. Adrian, can I ask you something? Sure. What are we doing? He knew what she meant, the question he'd been avoiding asking himself for weeks. I don't know, he said honestly. What do you want to be doing? I want... She stopped, searching for words. I want this. Whatever this is. You and Chloe and dinners that have nothing to do with work. I want to feel like a person again, not just a CEO. You are a person. I know. But I forget sometimes. Until I'm with you. Adrian's throat went tight. Victoria, I'm not asking for a commitment or a label or anything complicated, she said quickly. I just want you to know that I care about you, both of you. And if there's a version of the future where we figure this out, I want to try for it. Adrian looked over at Chloe, bent over her drawing, completely absorbed. Then he looked back at Victoria. I want that too, he said. But Chloe comes first. Always. I know, I wouldn't expect anything less. And we take it slow. We don't rush into something just because it feels good right now. Agreed. And if it doesn't work, if we realize this was a mistake, we handle it like adults. No drama, no blame. Victoria smiled. You've really thought about this. I'm a planner. I noticed. She stepped closer, and Adrian's heart rate picked up. So we're doing this? She asked. I think we're trying to do this. That's good enough for me. She kissed him then, soft and careful, a promise rather than a claim. When they pulled apart, Chloe was watching from the couch with a knowing smile. I knew it, she said. Adrian felt his face heat. Chloe, it's okay, Daddy. I said it was okay, remember? Victoria laughed. Is it okay if I really like your dad? Chloe considered this seriously. Only if you promise to keep being nice to me even when he makes you mad. Deal. Do you promise to tell me when I mess up? Because I probably will. Deal. They shook on it, solemn as a business contract. And just like that, the fear Adrian had been carrying loosened its grip. The next few months were better than Adrian could have hoped for. Work stabilized. The company continued to grow under Victoria's leadership, and the changes they'd implemented started showing real results. Employee turnover dropped by 30%. Productivity increased. Customer satisfaction ratings went up. But more than that, the culture changed. People smiled in the hallways. They talked about the company with pride instead of cynicism. They believed in what they were building. Adrian and Victoria were careful about their relationship at work. They kept it professional in meetings, didn't let it affect their decisions, made sure everyone knew that merit still mattered above everything else. But after hours, they were just Adrian and Victoria. Dinners at her place or his, movie nights with Chloe, weekend hikes where they didn't talk about work at all. It wasn't perfect. They argued sometimes about company strategy, about parenting decisions, about whose turn it was to pick the restaurant. Victoria worked too much and forgot to sleep. Adrian worried too much and forgot to relax. But they figured it out. They learned each other's patterns, their triggers, their tells. They learned how to be partners in every sense of the word. One Saturday in December, almost a year after that first morning in the park, Victoria took Adrian and Chloe ice skating. Chloe took to it immediately, gliding across the ice with the fearlessness of childhood. Victoria was less graceful, clinging to the railing and cursing every time her feet slipped. Adrian skated over to her. Need help? I'm fine. You're white-knuckling that rail. I'm maintaining my balance. He offered his hand. Trust me. Victoria looked at him, then at his hand, then back at his face. Then she let go of the rail and took his hand. They skated together slowly, Adrian steady and sure, Victoria gradually finding her rhythm. See, he said, not so bad. I still hate this. Liar, you're smiling. She was. Maybe a little. Chloe skated past them, showing off. Look, I can go backwards. That's great, baby girl, Adrian called. Don't fall. I won't. Victoria watched Chloe with a soft expression. She's gotten so confident. Yeah, I think having you around helped with that. How so? She sees a woman who's strong and smart and doesn't back down. That matters. Victoria squeezed his hand. I'm not that strong. Yes, you are. You just forget sometimes. They skated in silence for a moment, the cold air sharp and clean, the lights strung around the rink twinkling like stars. Then Victoria said, I love you. Adrian's heart stopped, started again, beat too fast. I know that's probably too soon, Victoria continued quickly. And I'm not expecting you to say it back. I just wanted you to know that I love you and Chloe and this life we're building. Adrian pulled her to a stop, right there in the middle of the rink, people skating around them. It's not too soon, he said. And I love you too. Victoria's eyes went bright. Yeah? Yeah. She kissed him, right there on the ice, and somewhere behind them Chloe cheered. When they pulled apart, both laughing, Adrian felt lighter than he had in years. This was it. This was what he'd been fighting for all along, not just survival, not just success, connection, love, family, the things that actually mattered. The 1-year anniversary of Adrian's first day at Hayes Industrial fell on a Tuesday in February. Victoria marked it by calling him into her office and handing him an envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it." Inside was a letter, handwritten on Victoria's personal stationery. It read, "Adrian, 1 year ago, I took a chance on someone who saw me when I was invisible, who treated me with kindness when he had no reason to, who believed in me before I believed in myself again. You've been more than a CFO, more than a friend. You've been a partner, a confidant, and the person who reminds me why we do this work in the first place. Thank you for showing up, for staying, for fighting beside me when it would have been easier to walk away. Thank you for being you." With love and gratitude, Victoria Adrian read it twice, throat tight. When he looked up, Victoria was watching him. "I wanted you to have something tangible," she said, "to remember that this mattered, that you mattered." "Victoria, His voice cracked. "Thank you." "No, thank you." They stood there for a moment, the weight of the year settling between them. Then Adrian said, "I have something for you too." He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. It was the bench in the park, but it wasn't empty anymore. Someone had installed a small plaque on the back. It read, "For those who see, for those who stop, for those who care." In honor of small acts of kindness that change everything. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. "You didn't. The city approved it last month. I wanted to surprise you. Adrian, you said you'd never forget that time in your life. I wanted to make sure no one else forgot either. That people remember kindness matters. That seeing people matters." Victoria was crying now, not bothering to hide it. "Can we go see it? Right now?" "Right now." They left the office without telling anyone where they were going, drove to the park in Victoria's car, and walked to the bench hand in hand. It looked the same as it always had. Cracked concrete, worn wood, surrounded by struggling grass and bare trees. But the plaque caught the afternoon light, words clear and permanent. Victoria sat down on the bench. Adrian sat beside her. "This is where it started," she said quietly. "Yeah. If you hadn't stopped that morning." "But I did." "Why? Really? Why did you stop?" Adrian thought about it, about that first morning when something in his chest had twisted at the sight of a woman sitting alone in the cold. "Because I knew what it felt like to be invisible," he said finally. "When Chloe's mom left, when I was broke and scared and trying to hold it together, I felt like I didn't exist. Like I was just going through the motions and no one noticed." He looked at Victoria. "And I promised myself that if I ever got to a place where I was stable, where I had enough, I'd see people the way I wished someone had seen me. I'd stop. I'd notice. I'd help if I could. That's why you made the sandwiches." "That's why I made the sandwiches." Victoria leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're a better person than you think you are. I'm just a person, trying my best. That's all any of us can do." They sat there for a long time, watching the park come to life around them. Joggers, dog walkers, kids playing, people living their ordinary lives without knowing the story this bench held. Eventually, Victoria said, "I want to do more." "More what?" "More of this. The scholarship fund was just the start. I want to create a foundation, fund programs that help people who are invisible. Homeless services, job training, mental health support. All the things I needed when I was here. That's a big undertaking. I know. But I can't shake the feeling that I survived for a reason, that all of this, the company, the fight, finding you, it was leading to something bigger." Adrian squeezed her hand. "Then let's do it. Together." "Together," Victoria agreed. The Hayes Foundation launched 6 months later. It started small, a pilot program in the city, partnering with existing shelters and job training centers, funding support services for people experiencing homelessness. But it grew quickly. Victoria was relentless, using every connection she had, every dollar she could spare, to build something that mattered. Adrian helped manage the finances, making sure the money went where it was supposed to go, that the programs actually worked. And Chloe, now 9 years old and wise beyond her years, became the unofficial face of the Foundation's youth outreach program, talking to kids about kindness and dignity and seeing people who were invisible. One day, during a Foundation event, a reporter asked Victoria why she'd started it. "Because someone saw me when I had nothing," she said simply. "And that changed everything. I want to make sure other people have that chance too." "Who was it that saw you?" Victoria looked across the room at Adrian, who was talking with Chloe about the art display they'd put together for the event. "Someone who taught me that kindness doesn't require a reason beyond it being the right thing to do." The reporter pressed for details, but Victoria just smiled and moved on to the next question. Some stories didn't need to be told in full. Some stories were better lived than explained. 2 years after that first morning in the park, on a bright Saturday in April, Adrian and Victoria got married. It was a small ceremony, just close friends, family, and the people who'd been part of the journey. Chloe was the flower girl, beaming in her purple dress, scattering petals with the seriousness of someone performing heart surgery. They held it in the park, right next to the bench. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Chloe raised her hand. Everyone laughed. "Do you have an objection, Chloe?" the officiant asked, playing along. "No, I just want to say something." "Go ahead." Chloe looked at Adrian and Victoria. "I'm really glad you found each other, and I'm really glad you let me be part of this. You're both the best, and I love you." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. After the ceremony, during the reception, Marcus from the manufacturing floor came up to Adrian. "Mr. Cole, I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For proving that good people can win, that doing the right thing actually matters." He shook Adrian's hand firmly. "You and Ms. Hayes, Victoria, you changed lives. Not just at the company, everywhere. We just did what needed to be done." "Exactly. That's what makes it matter." Later, when the sun was setting and the guests were starting to leave, Adrian found himself back at the bench with Victoria, both of them still in their wedding clothes. "Can you believe we're here?" Victoria asked. "No, but I'm glad we are." "Me too." She leaned against him, and they watched the light fade over the park. "You know what I think about sometimes?" Victoria said. "What?" "That morning you first stopped. If you'd been 30 seconds later, if you'd taken a different route, if you'd decided not to bother, none of this happens. No us, no Foundation, no second chance. But I didn't take a different route. I showed up. Why?" Adrian thought about all the reasons, all the justifications, all the explanations he'd given over the years. But in the end, it came down to something simple. "Because I saw someone who needed help, and I had the ability to help, so I did." Victoria smiled. "That's the most you answer I've ever heard." "It's the truth." "I know. That's what I love about it." They sat there until the stars came out, two people who'd found each other in the unlikeliest of places, who'd built something real from nothing but kindness and stubbornness and the refusal to look away. And when they finally stood to leave, Adrian looked back at the bench one last time. It was empty now, waiting for the next person who needed it. Waiting for the next person who'd notice. Waiting for the next story to begin. Because kindness didn't end. It rippled outward, touching lives in ways you couldn't predict or measure. All you could do was show up, see people, care. Everything else would follow. Adrian took Victoria's hand and they walked out of the park together, toward whatever came next. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything.